Welcome to Nurses Beyond Borders with your host Joshi. Joining me today is Sharon, a dedicated nurse educator from India and a specialist in skills and simulation. Sharon's journey into education began long before stepping into academia. After starting her nursing career in accident and emergency services over 12 years ago, she found herself drawn to supporting nursing students, both in clinical placements and in college and university settings. And that's where her love for teaching truly began. Since 2020, Sharon has been actively involved in nursing education, primarily within the NHS, before making the leap into academia just last year. Now, she's helping to shape and guide the next generation of nurses through simulation-based learning, bringing both real-world wisdom and her passion for education into every lesson she teaches. Today, we'll be talking about her transition from practice to teaching and what drives her as an educator, and why nurturing future nurses has become such a meaningful part of her journey. Stay tuned. You're going to love the conversation on Nurses Beyond Borders with incredible Sharon. Sharon, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. That was an amazing introduction, to be honest. I'm impressed at myself.
You are indeed. I'm proud of you as well.
Thank you.
Looking at your, portfolio, it's amazing and incredible. So let me go back to the basics. What inspired you to choose nursing as a career?
I think so I've got a very good reason to that because so back when I was a teenager, I think I was maybe 14 or 15 years old, my dad was unfortunately diagnosed with MS. My dad, I've always seen him healthy and doing everything for the family, and all of a sudden he got diagnosed with MS and he's hospitalized, and so my daily routine shifted to school, then hospital, then home, and then school, hospital, home, and that was it. And my mum and me were taking turns to look after him in the hospital, and that was in India where family is equally involved in patient care as well. So mum used to go to work and I was staying with my dad, and that's the first time I saw these nurses coming in. I still remember very, very clearly when this particular nurse came in with a IV bottle, a saline bottle, and she hanged it, she spiked it, she hanged it, and she connected it to my dad's cannula, and before that she flushed it. And I've sat there, I'm like, how does she know how to do that? How does she know what to spike? And then she came up with medication, she started mixing. I was so fascinated. And then I thought, maybe I can do this as well. And also I was introduced to this medical profession from a very young age because my parents were working in hospital, in admin. So I grew up around hospital. I used to accompany my mum to her office as well. And also because I was a single child, I didn't have childcare. So they used to take me to their workplace. I would play around doctors and nurses. I was always introduced to medical profession from a young age. However, the nursing profession was because of my dad's hospitalization, and then I saw a complete stranger coming and helping my dad to change his clothes. My dad had temperatures, so they were doing cold sponges on him, helped him to have a wash, took him to the toilet. And I'm thinking, as a teenager, how silly we were as a teenager, and I'm thinking, why would a stranger help my dad with basic things? Me or my mum should help, because I didn't know how to help him. I would wait for my mum to come and help him. But so that's what inspired me, that there is this group of people who don't have any relationship with one another, yet they're out there to help complete stranger, from the point of distress or medical condition to the point of getting them better and getting discharged. And I think that's what inspired me to become a nurse.
Wow, that's a very inspirational story, I would say. Watching out nurses, and then how old were you then? When this happened, when you were watching the nurses?
So I think I was maybe 14 or 15 years old.
Yeah, for a teenager, and then to make this big decision to get into nursing. So were you able to achieve those aspirations you had of serving people, and how contented did you feel as you progressed in your profession?
I think achieving that, first of all, going into that career was very difficult because the culture that I come from, so from Indian culture, parents have aspirations, and I think it's a very cultural thing that where parents just want you to either go in engineering or a doctor. I think it's just a pre-assumed conceptions there that either this or this, and also because they think for the benefit of the children, because they know that these professions will get these children a job, a permanent job, and a good paying job as well. So they pushed me into going for medicine. For doctors, but then I didn't want to become a doctor because you had to study a lot, and being a teenager, you just want to enjoy life because all your life you've been told study in school, then you can enjoy life. So I was looking forward to enjoy, and I've seen how much medical students had to learn, but I wasn't ready. So anyways, I gave my examinations for both, entrance exam for both medicine and for nursing, and then I thank God to till this day that I didn't get into medicine and I got into nursing. My family wasn't happy that I got into nursing, but I was very happy that I got one of my dream is fulfilled. I can put a tick on the checklist, and then I was very happy. However, 4 years of nursing learning was very interesting because I did my nursing in India, and we had 4 years of degree program over there. So you get an exposure in all fields of practice, whether it's CYP, that's your children and young people, or midwifery, psychiatry, learning disability, and adult nursing, combined everything in 4 years. So that was very interesting and a little bit hard as well, I would say. But I enjoyed my learning, and during that 4 times I was enjoying getting into my dream profession. My parents were not happy because they were still, I think in a way they still wanted me to change my mind and go into medicine career as well. But I still remember the first day of my job when I qualified as a nurse and I got into A&E, that's accident and emergency. So got into that profession, and I think it was just 1 or 2 months where my dad called me up and said, so how is it going? Are you still checking blood pressure and emptying catheter bags? Because the assumption is the nurses just check blood pressure and empty catheter bags. And I said, no, Dad, I work. So I began telling him stories how we had this MI patient and I did CPR for 25 minutes. We revived the patient's ICU, discharged after a week. We had this snake bite patient. We did all these things. And I'm telling him all the treatment measures, the first aid measures, or the first treatment protocol in A&E. And I think hearing all these stories changed his assumptions as well, that nursing has expanded beyond taking someone's blood pressure or emptying catheters or giving a wash. Nurses are expanding out of their profession as well. It's not just vital signs anymore. Nurses are becoming specialist nurses as well. They're becoming physician associates as well. So I think that changed my dad's perception of seeing me, that my daughter is not just checking blood pressure, she's out there saving life. So that was a really good bonding experience as well with my parents. Once they were happy about my career progression and the career profession that I've chosen, I think I was, that moment I was content that yes, I've achieved my dream profession. But up until that, there was always this void within me that parents are not happy because of my life choices. But that was it. So yes, at that point, I think after qualifying as a newly qualified nurse, a couple of months later, I was
think
happy.
Now your dad will be very proud of you.
Oh, he's very proud. Now that I'm in academia, he tells everyone, my daughter teaches in university. And I'm looking at him like, you're the same dad who wasn't happy. But anyways.
And did you realize that nurses have to study more, like medicals as well?
I think that was another
shock
assumption that we had to study equally as in the medicine. The only difference is theirs is 5 years, ours is 4
years.
Yeah, that's the only difference. But the books were this thick. Exam were tough, very tough. like you would have to memorize the whole anatomy and physiology of the human body, and then you're expected to write it on a piece of paper, like a
Yes.
surprise test. So
Yeah.
I'm glad I had to go through
and there are
it,
many
though.
subjects, isn't it? Pathophysiology, biochemistry, what else? Everything. Yeah, microbiology. Yeah, I
Yes.
know. Yeah. So now that you've settled into being an emergency nurse, what made you to move into the United Kingdom?
So, well, I mean, to be honest, it's the pay. Pay is, I think there's no pay progression in India, especially when we are working with the private organization. There's a massive pay gap between nurses and doctors in India, and I think it's out there in open for public as well. So everyone knows that one. I think that was one of the reason what prompted me to go outside India, because it's a pay gap. The second was career progression, because in India, I'm not sure, because I've left India it's been quite some years, so I don't know how is the nursing profession in India at present. But when I left in 2017, up until then, the only way you can progress is either become a physician associate, or you can do your masters and go into teaching, and that's the only thing. But
Get into a government
or
job,
get into a government or a public sector where the pay is good, but there's no progression. Again, you will remain that nurse forever, like a band 5 nurse in UK. You are just going to be a band 5 nurse in India. There's no progression. But I'm watching these movies and documentaries where from England or from Australia, from America, there's this nurse specialist. She's a diabetes specialist nurse, or tissue viability, and I'm thinking, what are those? Because I've never heard, and they're specialist nurses. I think that was another reason why I wanted to get out of my country, unfortunately, because the's no career progression as a nurse over there. So UK wasn't my first choice, though. My first choice was New Zealand during that time. But because the visa process application was taking too much of time, and to be honest, I randomly approached an agency and I said, have you got any vacancy in NHS? I'm willing to give my interview. I've got past my IELTS. So they arranged an interview. I think I spoke to the agency on a Monday. They arranged an interview for Wednesday. Thursday I got the job. And my dad said, what do you want to do? It's your choice. At the end of the day, you can either way, you're going out of your country. UK, New Zealand, it's equally far, so we can't even pick and choose. So I thought maybe I'll go to UK and wait to hear back from New Zealand, whatever happens. But then I came here and I never looked back then.
Yeah, and you shut the door for New Zealand now.
Yes. And to be honest, I think life takes you to the exact place where you're meant to be.
Exactly.
So most of the time, it's not your plans, it's what the plans that God has planned for you. So you, even if you resist, you run away, God brings you back where you're meant to be. And I think I was meant to be in UK, because I wouldn't get married to the man I am married now. I wouldn't be having this life at present. I wouldn't be in academia itself. So I don't
find your love here then?
Yes. I met my husband on the first day I came into this country. We ended
on the first day?
On the first day, because he was coming back from his country. Fortunately, we ended up in the same flat. We were flatmates. So
good. Wow.
There you go.
We should do another podcast with that then. All right, Sharon. So, as you landed up into the UK, into the NHS, how was your first day of working in the NHS? What were the challenges?
The first day, I'm going to be so honest with you. I don't think the English movies made during that time, I don't think they were being honest about the accents, because we used to hear this Queen's English that is very understandable. It's very subtle. There's no much accent there. It's very subtle. But so I was working in Essex before. That's down south in England. Even though the accent's really good there, but I had a couple of my other colleagues from different parts of UK over there, and it's my first day. So I was as a band 4 because I was waiting for my PIN number. I had to give OSCE as well. So I was waiting. I went into the, do you know where the handover happens? Into the staff room, yes. And they were giving handover. I got given a piece of paper. Now that's another thing. I don't think they had exposure of getting international nurses or understanding their background, because the expectations were she's a qualified nurse back home in India, she's got A&E experience, she's got ICU experience, she's very qualified, she knows what she's doing. So I got handed over a paper like this with the expectations that she would understand, and I'm looking at it, I had no clue. I knew it was in English, I had no clue what was on the paper. And again, there's a cultural difference, because the way we grew up, we were not encouraged to ask questions. Whatever people, especially from a person in power, you just need to, yes, okay, that's fine. Then you can go and ask one of your friend, or someone who's a junior to you, will go and ask them, but you wouldn't ask anyone who's senior to you or a person in power. So I'm like, I don't know whom to ask, I have no idea. And I'm like, I have to show that, yes, I understand, but I didn't understand. Then this colleague of mine, I think she was from, if I'm not wrong, I think she was Scottish. She started giving the handover. I honestly, Joshi, I did not understand a single word. And I'm thinking, what language was it? And they're talking about this, and I didn't understand. And I think within half an hour I was so confused. I went and spoke to my manager and I said, I'm really sorry, I don't understand this handover document. She's like, oh, what is wrong, Sharon? What is there not to understand? I said, there are loads of abbreviations. What do you mean by this? What do you mean by this? What do you mean by there was
even the news score in itself is new, isn't it? Which
I
is
said,
new,
she said patients newsing. I said, what is that? I've never heard about it in books. I've never learned that word. What is newsing? She actually smiled at me and she said, you'll get it on time. But because she was so busy, she gave me a buddy, and she was a sister there, but she was from India.
Okay.
So, the happiness that you see, seeing a familiar face, especially from your own country. So she said, come Sharon, what happened? I said, first, I did not understand what that lady said. Second, I don't understand this paper. So we had a good discussion, and then she said, it's okay, and I'm glad that you actually spoke to me about that. And I said, I felt a little embarrassed speaking to my manager, because they have these expectations that she's a qualified nurse, she should know all these things, but it's very different here. Anyways, that was my first experience in NHS, where I struggled to understand different accents. I struggled to understand even the slang words. I did not know that. So I will tell you another example that I tell my students as well. It was my second day, and I was shadowing my mentor there at work, and one of my patients, she was very elderly, very sweet lady. She said, come here, love. And someone called me love, and I'm like, oh, she's so sweet, she called me love. I did not know that it's a form of endearment. Anyway, she said, can you feel this jug of water? I said, sorry, what do you want? And she said, jug of water. I said, I really don't understand. I know you're saying jug. And then she said, can I have water? I said, you want water? So I went and filled it up. So I did not understand. I struggle with all these slangs. So again, NMC talks about patient safety as well. So communication is very important to maintain that safety. And if I'm not understanding what my patient's saying, so I think I had to go home and do loads of self-learning, understanding slang words, understanding accents. So I've done loads of learning. But I would say it took me maybe 3 to 4 months to actually settle in, to understand what people are saying, to understand British humor as well, because their humor is entirely different to our humor. Their phrases are different. So it took me 3 to 4 months to actually settle in my ward area. So I wouldn't say the experience was good, but I wouldn't say it was... I think I would say class at unpleasant. It was very unpleasant. Also because I was very young. It's my first time outside my home, my comfort zone. There's no one to cook. There's no one to do laundry. You have to be independent, but I don't know how to be independent.
I know. I can relate with you. For me, the first shock was there was no fan noise. There was no sound of a fan because I grew up in a very hot place and I'm used to hear that all the time.
Yeah.
The first day when I came in, and for me, I had to leave my 2 boys in India, and I had had to come. I was married and I had my sons then. And the first day, because I was hearing them calling me mommy, mommy, mommy in the flight, throughout the flight, I landed, and in this room I was given, it was all quiet. I felt like I was in alien land, and my babies are moved away from me. That's a shock. Yeah, I can completely relate with you. And in terms of clinical terms, even a simple term like being sick.
Yeah.
Because in India, being sick is you feel unwell.
Yes.
But here, when someone says you're feeling sick, you need to give them a bow. So it's something that I think many of the nurses, international nurses, can relate as well. Thanks for sharing that, Sharon. And in terms of opportunities, what were the opportunities you had in the working in the NHS or in the UK?
So I think opportunities-wise, because when international comes, I think different hospitals have got different procedures in place. For example, your I had that word in my mind. Do you know where they had to do this 1 year or 6 months?
The internship?
Internship.
The adaptation program?
Yeah, it's called something else as well.
Okay.
I completely forgot. It'll come to me. Anyways, so you have to do
preceptorship.
Preceptorship, yes. You have to do. So different trusts have got different time frame for preceptorship for international nurses. So my trust was, we had 12 months of preceptorship. So they used to look after the international nurses in that way. So that 12 months of preceptorship, we weren't allowed. We can change jobs. However, even if we apply for a band 6 position or a specialist position, I don't think we would be considered, because the only response we would get is, you haven't worked in NHS for that long, you haven't got experience, which I totally understand, because I used to think, are they differentiating me? Because why are you not considering my practice back home as well? It's not that I'm a newly qualified nurse, but now reflecting back and being part of interview panels as well, what I've learned is they were not being discriminatory. Because at present, if I'm in the interview panel, I would look at NHS experience as well. Because if I have to work for example, if I become a specialist nurse, I have to know how NHS work, how does the admission process work.
Being a nurse is a nurse, isn't it, all the time?
Being a nurse is a nurse. However, different areas have got different rules. Because right. Well, I'll talk about my last job in NHS. So I was involved in education. So I was part of the learning and organizational development team there. So I used to train international nurses for the OSCE exam. So my students, when they would pass their OSCE, they would ask, can I come and join your team, because I'm passionate about education? And I would always say, can you at least have 6 months or a year of experience out there in hospital? Because when you come here and teach, you would have to give example of what happens. If you're teaching a student discharge process, you would have to have experience of what actually happens. Otherwise, you're only teaching them theoretical knowledge. You are unable to give them examples specifically for NHS. So that way, I would say, yes, a little bit of NHS experience is needed. But sometimes I have seen when people see international nurses, especially even if we've got experience, I think they would go with familiar faces, and I think they would consider application, but we wouldn't progress into the next step, as in getting the job. And I have gone into loads of interviews. Now, the reason why was I wanted a change in the job role. The second was I wanted to get an interview experience as well. So I have attended loads of interviews for the jobs that I didn't want, but I wanted that experience of answering question and what are the questions they can ask, and how I can improve myself, increase my confidence as well. But some of the responses that I've got is, on this occasion, we went with someone who's got experience. And I'm thinking, I've got experience as well. So on what basis are you comparing me and the other person then? That's the only thing that they would say. Sorry, on this occasion we went with someone else who's got experience. So yes, I think the opportunities that's been provided to international nurses is way less. And I've also noted in particular areas, now I didn't had that experience though. However, my friends who worked in different areas have told me certain job opportunities, career progression job opportunities have come in their area and they were not made aware of. Certain people were emailed those opportunities that we are going to advertise, do you want to apply for it? And also, it was already arranged between those group of people that you would get the job, but then we would have to go through the interview
Formal
process because we need to justify why we employed you. To me, that's just a little bit of discriminatory as well, that because there are other more qualified people within your team who wants to qualify, who wants to progress as well, but you're not giving that person opportunity. Right, now they're going to give an excuse or cover that by saying that, but we've advertised, it was your responsibility to keep an eye on it if you wanted the job though.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't have given the person the job even if they applied for it. And to be honest, I've worked in areas like that as well, where people with 10 years of experience, qualified nurses, internationally qualified nurses, 10 years of NHS experience, 10 years of outside country, from their home country experience, not given opportunity to progress into band 6, whereas newly qualified nurses are getting band 6s even just after a year of working in that area. So I've seen that happening, and it's very saddening though, because equality, diversity, inclusion, it's all there. It's all there. But I feel it only exists in a paper as a checkbox that people can tick. I have selected this candidate, they are from this country, yes, we're doing our EDI. But when it comes to finalizing that candidate, they will write all these excuses saying, on this occasion we've decided to go with this person. So I have seen those happening within my area as well, previous areas where I've worked.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Sharon. I can relate to you in many of these examples, and I've heard a lot from my colleagues and friends as well, where the experience what the international nurses have gained, the vast experience is not many times considered.
No.
And they have to start from the scratch, isn't it? Maybe they've got 10 years of experience back home, but then they have to still wait for 10 more years to climb up the ladder. And it makes, and you rightly quoted about the language challenges as well, isn't it? The thing with international nurses is, because your brain processes your primary language, and there is a little bit of translation happening. Like now, when I'm talking in English, my mother tongue is Tamil, so my brain might be thinking in Tamil, and then it's translating in English. So that, I can't get the exact accent like a native speaker, but we try to understand, and that's what it means, isn't it? Thanks for sharing that, Sharon. So with this, exposure and you working in the NHS, what made you move to the academia then?
I think it happened in 2019. So the dream for academia started when I qualified, when I started in A&E. The hospital that I worked was in partnership with the college, with the nursing college. So back in India, we call it college rather than university in UK. I think in that terms, so majority of our educational system follows the American terminologies, because we call it college when in UK we call it university. So that hospital was in partnership with the nursing college, and we used to get nursing students. So when I think one of the tutors came for a clinical visit to see how the students are doing, and then we just happened to be chatting, and then they just asked me, where did you qualify? I said, I qualified from this college in India. And he said, I know this college because my wife was an alumni of that college. Would you like to come and do some sessions with students? It's totally voluntary basis because I didn't get paid for that opportunity. But then I said, yes, it's because I'm looking after these students. I would love to come and teach as well, and that's going to increase my capability as well and confidence as well in teaching. So I went and I taught a couple of sessions, particularly nursing skills. So I started teaching clinical skills from way years ago, I think. So we used to do that, and then came to UK, forgot all about what was happening. I was in Essex, then I moved to Manchester, and I think it was in 2019 where I saw an opportunity in the learning and development team within an NHS organization, and I thought, there's a teaching opportunities and maybe I'll give it a try. So I went for that interview, and before the interview, I went and met the interview panel as well. So we had a chat, and I asked the job description, because how is the transition going to be working, because it's a corporate job and I'm fully clinical. I've always worked clinical. Anyways, unfortunately, I didn't get the interview. I didn't clear the interview, and the feedback I got was exceptional. And but then the other feedback was they went on this occasion, they went with a person with 10 years of experience, teaching experience, and they also had a teaching qualification. And that's when I thought, what do you mean by teaching qualification? I have no idea what that is. Anyway, so we had that discussion. I got a good feedback, and so I forgot about it. And in the middle of 2019, there was another job opportunity from the same team and with the same job title. So I went and applied for it. And this time, luckily, I got the job.
Wow.
And they remembered me from last time and got the job. And I started with them in December. And I think that's how I started. So when I started, I was still new to teaching. It was clinical skills, but then you can't just one day wake up and decide to teach.
Yeah.
It would take you years to acquire that teaching skills. So I think the first year it was just me settling in, and towards second or third year I was getting better, and I think it was in my second year when I did my teaching qualification as well with NHS. So I got offered that opportunity within my team to do this qualification. So I did the qualification, and I think it was during PG Cert that this whole world of higher education just opened up to me, and these teaching theories and all these things. I think it just opened a big, massive door where opportunities are waiting for me. The dreams that I had all these years ago when I first qualified, they're just there. I just needed to take that first step. So I think that was the moment when I thought, I have acquired the skills and the knowledge that I should have as a teacher, also as an educator, and now it's finally time to go into higher academia. And the other thing was, I was involved in teaching registered nurses, and they are qualified nurses. So I'm teaching them to pass an exam. A thought came into my mind that why not just go into the root level, as in student nurses? Why not just treat them or teach them so that they become efficient nurses? I don't have to go out there and solve the problem, and we can come here and solve the problem at the root level. That was another reason why I came into academia as well.
Wow. That you made the right start, I would say, and we are lucky to have you here as well, Sharon. So with your vast experience, you touched many bits on the challenges, the differences in the education system as well at the start. So what do you bring with your vast experience as an international nurse into your teaching role, and what do you think about decolonization of nursing curriculum?
I think that loads of things I have I've brought with myself, because and it's a result of continuous self-reflection and learning as well. The first thing is, I think we subconsciously label international nurses or international students as I'll give an example of international nurse itself. So there's a label, they know. They've studied it, they passed, they've got a degree, they've got experience, they should know. They know the skills, but they don't know how to implement the skill in a different environment, with different equipment, with different paperwork, different document, different protocol and policies in place. For example, the way we do vital signs here is not the same. The skills is the same, but the process is different. We do it as a news chart here. Back home, we just do the vital signs. I'm not sure what are the policies in place in India at current time. I'm not sure, but the skills are the same, but the way process is different. So I think the first thing I learned was never label an international nurse saying, oh, she's got experience, she should know. No, take it. Remember their experience, however, start with a clean sheet of paper. So don't, and it's the same with international students as well. Don't label them. For example, we say especially with the international nurses, oh, their language barrier is too much, their language is really bad, they've got zero communication skills, and there's total disengagement with their students. Oh, we can't work with them. Again, there's a label. So it's put up on the international students. So every time anyone else who's going to see the student will remember that, oh yeah, these students are difficult to work with because communication barriers, or no. So we shouldn't label those same international nurses or international students, because they come with this vast amount of knowledge that they've acquired during their time. It's just the environment is changed. So all we can do is not labeling them, just accepting them as a person, just accepting them as you would accept your home students, a clean slate to start your work again. So that was one thing. And the other one was just to be kind to them, just to be kind to them and give them time. And for that to happen, we as educators needs loads of patience. We can't rush them. It's important to recognize that struggle as well, to be at a very young age. For example, an international student coming from their home country at the age of 18, packing their whole life in a suitcase, going into a different country, in a different environment where everything is new, and then them not getting that recognition and proper treatment from an educator. Imagine the damage that we're going to do on that young person who's just starting on their life. We as educators should be here to hold their hand and to take them on this learning journey, not just to label them, oh, we can't work with them because they're very difficult. We can't do that, and I don't think we should do that. But that's one of the things that I see here, even in higher education happening, labeling the students with difficult to work with students. And when I talk about international students, so this is international students, but sometimes we do it with the home students as well. We just label them and say, very difficult to work with. Oh, this student was so difficult in my class, they're disengaging. We talk to someone else, and that person subconsciously takes that thought, makes it into their own thought, and then they've got this conception about the student that, no, I don't like this student because that particular tutor told me that they're difficult to work with, so I'm going to ignore that student. I think that's an ongoing trend that I've noted here as well. And that's something that I'm working towards, to remove it from academia. I don't think I can remove it overnight, but yes, it's a constant fight to get it removed.
It is for us to understand where they come from, including the international students and also the international nurses, to understand, to have that empathy. And as you rightly mentioned, sometimes even from the other end, they would have not met someone from an international background.
Absolutely.
It is a new, completely different culture, a complete different accent for them as well. So you mentioned about the hierarchy and how some countries, from the cultural perspective, we are not trained to ask for help. We are trained to nod head, and then maybe you will go back to someone, maybe a friend of yours, and then ask. So for us to understand all these, thanks Sharon, that's a very insightful conversation. So what is one piece of advice you would give for future nurses or to your younger self?
To my younger self? To my younger self, that never stop believing in your dreams. I mean, life is going to throw you obstacles after obstacles. You will be thrown into an environment that is outside your comfort zone. You will have loads of obstacles that I had: language barrier, weather, food, barriers in progression as well, not given the adequate amount of opportunity to progress than my colleagues who got it very easily. I have to work my way up in my career progression, whereas my other colleagues were just handed over, would you like this, and do you know this is coming up? So I would just tell my younger self, never stop that fight, because what if I had just given up in 2019 when I first went for the interview and I didn't get that education role? What if I've just said, yeah, that's fine, they're never going to give it for me. I would just quietly work as a band 5 and earn my money here. Not to give up. what if I've given up? I would never be sitting here in front of you and having this chat as well. So yes, never to give up and never to stop believing in your dreams.
Thanks, Sharon. Thanks. That's so insightful. Let's end up with a quick rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Is it coffee or tea before a lecture session?
Water.
Okay. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Early bird.
Okay. If you could teach anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Where I'm teaching right now.
Wonderful. What's your go-to stress reliever after a long day?
My husband.
Cool. I told you we should have another podcast about that. So if you weren't a nurse or teaching nursing, what would you be doing now?
Teaching.
Be a teacher somewhere? If you were not a nurse?
If I'm not a nurse, I would be in a corporate job. Yes, I would
What
be in a
type of-
corporate job, working in an office, maybe in marketing. I would say marketing, yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Good. Yeah. We can see a CEO in that. So one thing you love about academia?
It's the student interaction. I love the student interaction. It's when I see the students face to face and I teach them, and it's that moment that I'm telling them, how it's done. This is how it's done, and their faces go, "Oh, we get it."
Yeah.
I think that's where I get my adrenaline boost. It's
Wow.
the student interaction.
Yes. And one thing you want to change
About myself?
in nursing
In nursing,
or in nursing academia?
I think we really need to focus on anatomy and physiology,
Mhm.
teaching of anatomy and physiology. I think we need to teach anatomy and physiology in depth
Mhm.
in nursing. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Sharon. That was a very powerful and insightful conversation. Is there any one last thing you would want to tell to our listeners before we wind up this?
I don't know what does that mean. You put me on the spot. However, I would say I never considered nursing as a profession per se, even though it pays me really well. But I wouldn't consider as a profession. It is a calling. It gives you a kind of satisfaction that I don't think you're going to get from any other job. When a patient holds your hand and says, "Thank you for looking after me," it just changes your perception. It changes your perspective of life. It makes you a more kinder and a compassionate person. But the other thing I want to say to the listeners, if you are in nursing career, don't forget to look after yourself, because most of the time, 99%, we end up giving all ourselves to the patient that we forget to look after ourselves. And it is a very demanding profession, so don't forget to look after yourself.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sharon. It has been a wonderful conversation. I think I can just keep on listening to you. You've got loads to share. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing your journey and your aspirations as well. I look forward for your achievements and wishing you all the best with whatever you do, and for your amazing the teaching you do with the simulations. Thank you, Sharon, and thanks for listening. This is Nurses Beyond Borders podcast series with your host Joshi. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshi.